DC Boxing Legend Podcast. 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 Home of the champions. DC Boxing Legends Podcast. I'm here with a special guest today. We have one of the greatest fighters to ever come out of Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen. Today we have Winky Wright.
What's up, my man?
How you doing, brother?
I'm good.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on some things because, when we was fighting back in the amateurs, a lot of... we used to have to debate with a lot of guys that came from other areas. It was like, man, Winky Wright's from Washington, D.C., man. That's home.
Yeah. It definitely is. But I grew up born and raised in D.C., and I moved to Florida when I was 15 going on 16, like 2 months before I turned 16. And then, that's when I left DC and I came down here, and that's when I started boxing.
Oh, so you started boxing in St. Petersburg?
Florida.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I started boxing.
Okay, yeah. What was that transition like coming from DC moving to Florida? How was that for you?
Oh man, that shit was crazy, man. Coming from the city, and like I tell people, when I grew up in Washington D.C., my elementary school was on one corner, my middle school was on the next corner, and my high school was just like 4 blocks over. So, everything was right there. And then, when I lived in D.C., I never went to school with anything but black.
Yeah,
my teacher, my teachers is black. Everybody go to the school black from elementary, middle school, and the high school. You know what I'm saying? So it was just crazy. I ain't really, respecting the white people, no Asian people. So for me to come down here, it was totally different. When I came down here, I was. I had Asian kids, I had everything, white, everything in there. So it was just different. Then, it was unique. It was good though. It allowed me to see other cultures and see how people deal with things. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed. So, you was what year was that when you left here? What year were you thinking?
I left here. I left DC. I moved out here in '88.
Okay.
July. I think it was June or July '88.
Okay. So you definitely was going to the Go-Go's or knew about the Go-Go's.
Yeah. We went to the Go-Go's, all that Go-Go music. I love all that. It's just, once I left, it was different. Like I say, all my homeboys, everything at that time was about DC, this. They don't never want to go nowhere. I used to tell them, man, y'all got to get out of DC because you got to go see your stuff. You know what I'm saying? But, we just so ingrown on being right there in DC, everything about DC, so. That's
real talk, man. Different. It's still that way to this day, man. It's still that way to this day, man.
Brothers got to get out there, man. It's a big world out here, man. DC is nice, but you better go out here and see what's up out here.
That's real talk, man. So, what made you start boxing?
Well, in DC, I always wanted to box, but I played basketball, football, baseball, like, they're coming up every year. You got basketball season, baseball season, and then football season. So we did it like that. But I always wanted to box. And then, in my neighborhood, we used to always just box and body punch a lot, do little stuff like that all the time. And then, but I was so small at that time. I was, when I was living in DC, man, I was really short. When I left DC, I probably was like 5 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah, and I grew, I grew from that to like 5'11".
Dang.
And I moved to Florida.
Man, I wish I got that gift. I'm 5'4", man.
That's why a lot of people did. That's why they did. When I started boxing, they was like, that ain't Wink was small, man. Wink was short. But but then that thing, they see me, they're like, God damn, young, you grew tall as on one. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, who was the idols or fighters that you looked up to coming up? Yeah,
man, Sugar Ray Leonard definitely Marvin Hagler for his toughness.
Yeah.
You know, I love Whitaker. Whitaker was so smooth with it. You know what I mean? Just make you miss, and it was just slick and smooth with it. And then, of course, Muhammad Ali. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I definitely like them. Them were my fighters I really like growing up.
Yeah, man, you was considered, man. I remember watching you, man. It was like you had some of the greatest defense I've ever seen in my life.
I appreciate that,
and to watch you fight, man, it was like, how could you get through that brick layer? Like, you was like to me, you remind me of the Great Wall of China. How could you get through his arms, man?
Yeah, man. You know, at that time when, you know, before, you know, I would tell a lot of people that style the fight came on later for me, because before I was a slick boxer. I stuck and move, jab, move around, was too quick. Nobody really could hit me, so the fights wasn't exciting. So me trying to get on HBO and all these other channels, they was like, man, the fight, it ain't exciting. You just one-sided, and you know, it just ain't exciting. I'm like, well, it's supposed to be one-sided. If I'm beaten, you know, why should I have to go out here and make it dangerous? You know what I'm saying? But that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted from me. So right. You know what I'm saying. So it was like, okay, only way I'm gonna really get them to show me is to show them that I can stand here and fight, which I could, but they didn't know. They thought they were just, you know, I was just a stick and mover. So that's when they put me in with Vargas.
Okay.
And you know, Vargas was at that time 17-0, 17 knockouts. And, you know, I'm a kid coming to DC, so you know, I had fought for the world title, world championship in Europe, and I lost to the dude, but I was clearly outboxing the dude. Just I couldn't keep my footing. So you know, he got a few knockdowns. A lot of them were slips, but he knocked me down in like last round probably twice. But it wasn't hurt, but I was just tired. That was the first time I went 12 rounds. But it was cool. It was a learning experience. But it showed me right then that, you know, I can fight the best. If this dude was the champion and I fought him on my worst day, as far as I couldn't even stand up because my feet were sliding, I said, man, I'm gonna destroy him next time I fight him. But they wouldn't fight me again. So, you know, I had to come back. I had to keep beating all of them one contenders. If you really look at my record coming up, man, I beat so many of them one contenders and unranked fighters because I could never get the big fighters to fight me. You know what I'm saying? I was number one across the board. When I did go for my title, I was number one across the board. WBC, WBA, IBF. You know what I'm saying?
I was just looking at your box rep. I was like, wow, he beat everybody.
Yeah, I beat everybody at that time. That was somebody who, if they didn't get to be a big name because I beat them. Once I beat them, then they got knocked off. But at that time, if you look at their record when I beat them, you know, I beat a lot of fighters that had good records. I ain't had no lot of ducks. They wouldn't give me fighters with losing records and stuff like that. They would give me fighters that they thought could beat. And I ain't care. I felt when you feel you the best, you want to fight the best, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to give to whoever y'all want to hit with. Just pay me.
And when I looked at your record, I said, because we were just talking about that on one of the prior podcasts about boxer resumes, and from the look of your resume, you definitely had one of the top ones. You beat everybody. I was just looking at the list from Fernando Vargas to Bernard Hopkins to Felix Trinidad, Ike Cortez, Jermaine Teller, Paul Williams, Peter Quillen. You know, I say. This brother beat everybody and fought everybody,
man. That's right. You know what I'm saying? If you feel you the best, you won't fight the best. So that's how I feel.
So what was like for you preparing for some of these fights? What was your resume?
Well, you know, when I'm preparing for the big fights, then once I beat Shane Mosley the first time, then it was a whole different, everything changed. You know, it was more, now everybody know Winky Wright. People in boxing knew my name because they knew, you know, back then you had to look in a Ring magazine because there was no social media and all that. So people looked at Ring magazine and, you know, all the boxing world knew who my name was, but a lot of them didn't know my face because they wasn't showing me on TV like they were showing everybody else. So when I beat Shane, then I became a household name. So then I had to do it again, then they really knew me. So then it was just that, you know, I had to just keep beating everybody. And once again, as I beat Shane and beat a few more fighters, it wasn't nobody else really to fight. You know what I'm saying? I was undisputed junior middleweight champion, and I ain't had nobody to fight. You know what I'm saying? So I moved up to middleweight. I ain't never lose the junior middleweight title. I gave them up because I moved up to middleweight to fight Jermaine Taylor for the undisputed middleweight title, which I beat that nigga, and they gave it a draw.
Yeah.
But you know, it is what it is. So you know, I never lost my titles, and then once they did that, that really started giving me boxing wasn't that important anymore.
Right.
It became like people just were using it, you know, for favoritism and this and that, you know. So I kind of lost the love for the game because it's a great sport, but it's just too much bad decisions going on. I don't know if you just saw a fight this weekend, the little cat on Showtime. They had a little cat fighting on Showtime. He was both of fighters was good, but the one little cat, I guess they were trying to build him up. He was power punching and this and that. But he fought a little Dominican dude or whatever. Man, Dominican dude boxed the lights out of him, man. Wow. They gave the fight to the other kid a unanimous decision, and by like 112 to 117. I'm like, really? What are they watching? It's ridiculous, man. We gotta change this.
Yeah, you know what? Jeter, one of the guys from here, Tony Jeter from here in this area. He was a middleweight prospect also, and he was saying he think they need to bring replay into boxing like they do into football in terms of like decisions. How you feel about that?
I feel that might be something they can consider because right now boxing is crazy. These judges don't realize that even if the promoter's paying them more to sway their vote or whatever, you know, they destroying fighters' lives because now you got a fighter that Dominican kid who was a sharp kid who was on his way up to the top, beat this kid easily, who deserved the victory. You give him a loss, now he feeling some kind of way. Now you take the other kid who didn't win and you boosting him up like he a great fighter, but now he gonna go right out and somebody gonna knock his block off. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So they trying to hold on to this. People got in their mind so much about being undefeated instead of being a great fighter. If you lose, you lose. The greatest lost, man. Muhammad Ali lost. The greatest will lose. They will lose. You will have some fighters. You will have a few fighters in history that won't lose, and that's good. And there's only a few of them for everybody that haven't lost. But you know, Floyd did his thing. I give him that. Yeah. But if you look at Andre Ward is one who was a bad man, and you know, Kawasaki undefeated. So you know, these cats did what they had to do. They won, and that's great. Everybody ain't gonna be like that. But don't try to mess up somebody else's career to try to keep another kid with his achiever on his record when he don't deserve it. If you lose, you lose. Yep. The best lose. That determines if you're gonna be a champion. If you come back from a loss and win.
Exactly. And then that was as amateurs we had to go through. That's how we learned too.
That's right. That's why you see great amateurs come out to be very good professionals because they know how to adjust. They know how to to change their game, or they know how to take a loss and turn it into a win. But nowadays everybody got so much things on his undefeated record that boxing is falling to the wayside.
It is because it's only a few going to scathe that same thing that happened with Floyd and like you said, those names you named. But you take a loss and still learn from it because
and still be a great fighter. You can take a loss, come back, and sometimes a loss make you better.
It does.
You take away that invincibleness. You know what I'm saying? You think you are. Yeah. So,
who was your greatest rivalry in terms of the fight game out of all those names I named?
I guess it would have to be Shane because he's the only one fought twice. Well, I fought a Bronco McCart back in the days. Now Bronco was at that time he was undefeated too, and he was a champion, USBA champion, and they was all high on him. And I had to beat him 3 times. The first time I beat him, they came back and beat him again, and then I guess they still thought, well, maybe one more time. Then I beat him a 3rd time, so they realized, okay, this ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? But I think Shane Mosley, I guess.
Okay. So you was the last undisputed light middleweight champion of the world, and still to this day, no one else has yet done that. How does that feel to you, and what does that explain about yourself, to how you feel about being the last undisputed light middleweight champion of the world?
Man, I feel great about it, because you gotta look at it. I was a fighter who, they didn't want to be that undisputed champion. I'm that fighter that they didn't expect to be that undisputed junior middleweight champion. So it's a great accomplishment for me, but the greater accomplishment was to continue with it. I won it, and I continued being undisputed. I didn't lose it. Like I said, I continued to be a junior middleweight champion, and at the end of the day, I gave it up to become the undisputed middleweight champion. So, it's a lot in that. Not just so what you win a title, you got to keep the title.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? I never lost the title. I kept the titles.
You gave it away. You gave it away to move up.
Yeah, I gave them away to move up.
Yep. So, what advice would you give the future of boxing?
Man, first of all, I think, like I said, we got to figure out some way to come up with a governing body of boxing where fighters and can be judged fairly. Fighters can be paid fairly, because there's a lot of fighters out there that's great fighters, very good fighters that you'll never see, but because they can't get the opportunity, they won't get the payday, they won't get, certain things that to allow the fans to see them. So, we gotta figure out a way where it could be like football, basketball. If you're a good player, you're gonna come up, you're gonna get your chance. So you deserve your chance, you should get your chance. Right. And everybody stop. There's so many different promoters here. So many people in your pocket that they won't allow certain fighters to take chances and take risks to become great. And there's a lot of fighters out here right now that they want to label great, but they haven't fought anyone to say they're great. Yeah, they fought. They beating people because they beating the people that they should beat. Exactly. I want to see you beat the people who we don't know if you can beat. If it's a 50-50, then that's what makes you great. You know what I'm saying? Right. You ain't great just because you knock out a few people that you should be knocking out.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. A lot of them fighting a lot of tomato cans and haven't seen reality for real.
Yeah, but I ain't gonna say tomato cans, because any fighter that gets up in the ring, that's right, can fight. And they get to that level, you can fight. Well, what I'm saying is, when fighters that you seen fight people that they shouldn't even be in the ring with, and they get beat, and they should get beat, and you shouldn't have been in the ring with that. Now that fighter, they count that fighter great. I want to see that fighter fight somebody of the same caliber. I want to see some fight that same age. You know what I'm saying? You get fighters a lot of times now where they try to use an older fighter, get him to fight a younger fighter and get his name. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Nah, put these two young dogs in here and let's fight. And that's what's going to make them great. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, indeed. It's only a few people that I could say ask this question to that's from DC. How does it feel when you became inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame?
Oh man, that was another surprise, because I think I was in Vegas hanging out, whatever. Then I had the International Boxing Hall of Fame president call me and let me know that I've been my name is in the running to be inducted first. That's how they do it. They call you and tell you, okay, you and some other people, your name is in the running to be inducted. And I was like, oh wow. I said, okay, cool. And then because I never really paid attention to it, really honestly. And then so I looked into it and was like, okay, they only put in a certain amount of fighters every year. Yeah. And then if you ain't going that year, you still going the next year and then the next year. So it's a lot of people that ain't been in it that still can bring their name up later. So I'm like, oh wow. So my name came up. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, shoot. Like, if they judge on my accomplishments, then I think I should get in it. If they judge on favoritism, then I don't know about it. But they judge on accomplishment and what I did and what I accomplished, and they put me in. And I was greatly appreciated.
Yeah, man, because you earn everything you got, brother. When we used to watch, we used to be so proud of you, man. Watching you, knowing this was hometown, man, and
that's right.
To see you, and we knew, and it kind of like struck a light bulb to me, like sometimes you got to go away to get focused,
Yeah, you do, man. You do. Sometimes you gotta, and that's even from here too. Even okay, I box at St. Pete, but when I got to the bigger stages, I realized that I had to go away to continue to be successful, because you got people that's around you that don't want to see you succeed. Even though they like you, they just don't want to see you succeed, because then they shine a different light on them. But then you got people who want to see you succeed. So what you got to do, you just got to take yourself out of that element and then go handle your business, and then you come back home and then you can have fun. So that's what I did. Once I established myself, I go back to DC, I have fun. I got some of my homeboys up there. I still mess with, and we have a good time.
I'm sure they was probably very proud of you to see you reach that level,
Oh, word. They definitely. Like I say, they always, I was happy for me to do it. And like I said, you're going to have a few haters, but it is what it is. But, majority, I can't live my life worried about haters. I got to live my life for me, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
so it was great that I had a lot of people, support me, and I always appreciate that.
Because I saw a video on YouTube of you going to your old house, man. That was wonderful.
Yeah, man. I had went up there and hollered at my home, because my home was still, where his parents still stayed 2 houses down. So that's my little neighborhood I grew up. So I went there, so his parents, and then he came over there. Then he was telling me that the people who bought my house, they friends with me. I was like, I want to see what it is. So then she let me. I came. She's like, I heard this is your house. And I was like, you let me come. She's like, sure, come on. So then that's when I did that.
That's what's up,
nice, man. I really appreciate it.
So you from Northeast DC, man?
Yeah, I'm from Northeast. I'm from Northeast. I went to, like that house right there. I'm right down the street. I went to Smothers Elementary.
I went to Smothers, man. I went to Smothers.
You bullshit.
I went to Smothers, man. I live on 47th Street, man.
Oh, you live on 47 or what?
Was that 47? What's that? What is that?
I was on 46.
I lived on 47 at the top. I forgot. I lived on there in 91, though. This was in 91.
Oh, yeah. I was gone.
I say he from no reason he lived. I say he probably went to Smothers. I ain't even researched that.
I went to Smothers. I went to Millers.
Went to Kelly Miller, too?
I went to Kelly Miller, and then I went to HD 1 year. My
man,
1 year I went to HD.
Hey, man, you all the way live, DC, man.
Yeah. I come there. They be like, man, you supposed to. I said, man, I'm from DC, but I live in Florida.
Yeah. Man, in the Nationals, we have to debate with these jokers all the time, man. I said, man, he from DC, man.
Yeah, then what it was, see, when I moved down here, this boxing wasn't no boxing. There wasn't nobody doing nothing down here.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I was the first. So, you know what I'm saying? When you say St. Petersburg, Florida back in the day, people like, what? St. Petersburg?
Right.
That? You know what I'm saying? But once I started fighting it, they started doing, the Winky Wright, St. Petersburg, Florida. So I kind of like put it on the map. Then I put it on the map for boxing, and then, I had my man Jeff Lacey come behind me, and then I had my man Keith Thurman come behind me.
Oh, yeah.
And then, my dude Antonio Tarver.
Yeah.
So, we had a lot of good fighters over there now.
I remember Tarver when I was fighting, man.
Yeah.
He's like a representative for all the USA boxers at the time.
Yeah.
So business-wise, what advice do you have for the young as far as business about their finances and
Yeah, man. That's what, listen, man, I'm going to tell these kids, when you fight, man, that money going to come quick and it's going to go quick. So you got to make sure you get with somebody who's doing something outside of boxing. Don't make boxing your only way of getting money. Once you get your money, find a way where you can keep your money coming for a long time, because boxing is a short career. I was lucky. I was fighting for like 21 years as a pro.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it ain't a lot of fighters gonna be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I had a long career, but that time, that 10 years you fighting, it seemed like a long time, but that shit can go by so fast. Then you got 30, 40 years after that. So you got to try to save up and get ready for them years and still be able to do the things that you want to do like you're doing now. We all going to make mistakes, and some things we can't stop, like me. Like, listen, when the stock market crashed, that was when I was at the height of my career. So, a lot of the money I made, I made around that time, 2008, 2009. Right. So, when that market crashed, it hit me too. But, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I had good people around me, and I did some good things, and, I'm okay. But it could have been a lot better if the damn whole market went to crash. I'd have been doing a lot better things, but it is what it is. Life, shit happens for a reason.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
No. I was done.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, you listening to you had almost 60 professional fights. And to hear you talk, this is what I try to tell young fighters. Defense is very important in boxing. Yeah. It's just a conversation. Yeah. Most people with 60 fights, we can barely get a complete conversation out of it.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I never wanted to be like that. I saw a lot of the fighters when I was fighting coming up, the slurred speech, and they can't talk too fast. The emotions is slower. I was like, no, I don't want to be like that, man. I'm gonna go ahead and block the more shots I can block, the longer my career could be. And then you gotta know when it's time when it's time to quit. You gotta quit. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, with me, I really would have quit boxing, maybe after Hopkins, because I was mad that they robbed me with Hopkins. Mm-hmm. Then I was definitely mad that listen, before Hopkins, I ain't fought in a year and a half, and then because nobody wanted to fight. Right. It was like I couldn't get no fight, so I got to go up 2 weight classes to fight this man who just beat my homeboy Tarver. Yep. So I wanted to kick his ass for Tarver. Right. I was like, I'm gonna show this that he ain't all that. Right. I ain't scared of him. Tarver, man, I ain't scared of young boy. You got the wrong. Don't get it because I'm light skinned that I'm scared of you. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that was. So, but after that, I really, like I said, I had been lost the love for boxing. So it was just mainly just go ahead and get a check and then keep moving. But then I realized that, man, I'm not gonna be in here get hurt behind this dumb junk. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it moving, man. So that's what I told him. I'm done. I'm done there. The Quillen fight, because the Quillen fight, I'm looking at him. I'm like, I can hit this kid with everything, but my hands won't go. I can't let it go. Right. I see it, but I can't let it go. I'm like, what is wrong? And then I see his punches. I'm picking them off. Yeah. He ain't hurting me. It's just like, man, what the hell going on? So I in that fight, like probably about 6 rounds, I told my cup man, I'm done after this. I said, I can't let go. I said, I see the punches where I want to do it. He's right there. Right. But when I get to throw it, my hands don't let go.
Yeah, that's when you reach that point when that happens.
Yeah, I know. Yes, and I knew. I was like, oh, it's over. I'm not gonna be getting beat up. No sir.
At least you one of the smart ones, because a lot of fighters, man, it's so addictive to be. You know how the sport is. Kind of gets addictive sometimes. Yeah, the limelight, the training. Just feeling like Superman.
Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of them get to, everybody know you from boxing. Everybody, give you your props from boxing, and that's what it is with a lot of fighters. And with me, I love boxing, but boxing wasn't all my life. I did other things. I love golf, and I do a lot of different things. So, for me, when I stopped boxing, it was like, okay, cool, I'm done. I'm out golfing with everybody. I go play golf tournaments, different people, and do different things, so I was straight. So I didn't miss the game like that, When I walked away, I knew I wasn't coming back. Now they made me all my review. Exactly. But I knew I wasn't coming back.
Right. And I remember those days when everybody was scared to fight you, though, man. Because we used to be pissed because we like, come on, man. So for me as a fighter, they always had that saying, go swimming and not get wet. You definitely didn't get wet in that pool, brother.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So and you was definitely, it can be still this day and time if someone want to learn how to teach their child defense or teach their fighter defense, you would be the go-to. Take the watch.
Yeah. I definitely, they ask me a lot, do I want to train fighters? Really for me, like I say, I turned pro. I started boxing when I was 16. I started boxing when I was 16, amateur. Right. I turned pro when I was 18.
Wow.
So, you know, in them 2 years, I fought 60 fights as an amateur. You know what I'm saying? I won the 1990 Olympic Festival.
Okay.
Once when I got the gold medal from the Olympic Festival, when they told me they weren't going to let me go to the Goodwill Games, I'm like, I just beat the number 1 and number 3 contender. Y'all supposed to at least let me go to the box off.
Exactly.
They was like, no. So I say, man, I'm done. I ain't gonna wait around here, and they not gonna let me. So I was just like, forget boxing. But then, like I said, somebody asked me to turn pro. I was like, I do it. You gonna pay me just to box, and I like boxing.
Love to do it.
So it was just like I said, God was on my side, and everything just worked out for me, man.
Man, we definitely appreciate you for coming on here, brother. That's all our time, man. If anything you want to shout out or have to give love to anybody back home.
Definitely, man. I just want to say what's up to everybody in DC, all my folks, man. On 46 over there, Northeast, you know, all my cousins and stuff still out there. And love to all everybody in DC, man. Everybody show love. You know, when I would fight, they would come out to Vegas and watch me, man. I really appreciate that. So, I thank everybody. And like I said, I love DC fighters, man. My dude, Mark Johnson, and the rest of the crew, Job, all of them, man. Holmes, Keith Holmes, all of them, man. They were some tough fighters, man. They just, some of them got in some different circumstances with people, but, like I said, they all good fighters, man.
Yes, indeed, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, International Hall of Famer, the last undisputed light middleweight champion of the world, Winky Wright. DC Boxing Legends Podcast. Peace.
DC Boxing Legend Podcast. 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 DC Boxing Legend Podcast, home of the champ.